we're in the trenches in the season that we're in now. We have 4 kids, 7, 4, 3 and almost 1. I had all of that on my side and I had a whole life ahead of me. And I think that like I have 4 children and, you know, I didn't freeze my eggs. I didn't do anything like that. I wish we could get married now because I feel like I really know you. Like I didn't know you then and you didn't know me. Like a really loaded question in the sense that I think I really felt a race against the clock. You know, you can't be everything all at once, and I don't think there is such thing as balance.
Tessa James, welcome to the Stellar Podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Lovely to have you here. You were mentioning just before we went on air that this is the first podcast interview you've done.
Yeah, it is, and I'm really happy to be here. I've been wanting to do a podcast for a while. I love a good chat, so.
Well, it's a privilege to us that this is your first podcast. And I have to start by talking about your white shirt. We're going to talk a little bit about your white shirt because it's not any white shirt. It's one from the Witchery White Shirt campaign for 2025. You, of course, are a mother of 4, so I have to admire any woman that can pull off a white shirt while juggling a busy life and career and 4 children.
Yeah, it's surprising. I actually wear a lot of white. It's my go-to color, I guess, if you want to call it. I think it's easy with kids sometimes because it's just do your whites and bleach and we're good to go.
That's a really good point actually. My son's school uniform is white, so you make it, and there's no mistaking it, is it?
No.
But sometimes in a more neutral colour, you don't realise until the next time you're running out the door.
No, and it's a bit of a process of elimination. I like to just know that I'm wearing that colour and that's kind of it, and we're good to go. My wardrobe is very uniform-like.
Completely relatable again for someone, I think, with a busy life and 4 children. Obviously, it's a cause very close to your heart, and I want to talk to you a little bit more about that in a moment. But I'd love to start by starting with your story, Tessa. You recently, earlier this year, shared a post on Instagram, which was reflecting on a really special milestone and moment. I'd love to share that with our audience now. You posted, 10 years ago, I underwent 6 months of chemotherapy treatment after being diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. Today, I'm proud to say that I'm cancer-free with 4 beautiful, healthy kids. Grateful for this journey and everything that came with it. What a moment. And the word grateful, you didn't just say you were grateful for where you are today and the outcome being cancer-free 10 years on. You said you were grateful for the whole journey. That's not a word that a lot of people would think of when you're talking about being diagnosed with cancer. Why that word?
Look, firstly, I'm extremely lucky to be here. I know there's a lot of people that aren't so lucky, so I'm grateful for that, for sure. I think 10 years on and the life that I have lived in between that, I'm grateful for the lesson that it gave me and continues to give me, and that I have that, I guess, that little kind of magic, and I've got that for the rest of my life. And I think initially when, you know, I guess for me, initially when I was diagnosed and when I was going through chemotherapy, it's an extremely traumatic time. And you have so many people saying to you, you will be grateful for this, you will be a better person for this. And I think I felt a lot of pressure from that, thinking, I have to come out of this a better person and I have to achieve this after. And I really, when I finished, I was a bit lost with that. I kind of didn't know where that was supposed to show up. And it was almost like disappointed. I was like, why am I not, you know, I'm grateful to be here, but why do I not feel, I guess, like I'm achieving more? It was a lot for me. And I think only now, since I've had my kids and I'm really living my life and settling into my life, is I can see the benefit of what that experience taught me and the lessons that it gave me and the strength that it gave me. And I guess, the individuality that it gave me, and it's what makes me me. And I think that that will just continue to grow. I think for a really long time, especially after something like that, you almost push it away. You know, you don't want to deal with it. You don't want to indulge in it. You really just want to put it behind you and get rid of it. And I did that for a really long time. And I think just over the years, having worked through a lot of stuff, doing a lot of self work, it's really come up in such a positive way for me. And I feel like I'm in a really good place to share that with others.
It would have struck a chord with so many people, but I also love, Tessa, how in that answer you've spoken about the pressure that you felt when people would say to you around the time of your diagnosis, one day you'll be grateful for this. Because I would imagine anyone that's in the early days of not only dealing with a really serious health diagnosis, but any sort of completely unexpected, confronting, very serious issue in their lives might be getting similar, really well-meaning messages, and of course, ultimately accurate messages, hopefully. But when you say that pressure that you felt, I imagine some people might also feel a bit of resentment or anger that that's what somebody is saying to them. So that's a really powerful message too, that for you it has been, it took a long time to get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, I was so young. I mean, I am young, but I was 23 and I had just got married. I was, you know, going to LA all the time. I had this career, I had a dream, and, you know, really I just wanted to get that part over and done with so I could just go back to my life. And, you know, that's kind of where my head was at. And that's what got me through, really. So I think it's just, I guess, why I feel it's important to share that I'm grateful for what it has given me, is because I want people to almost surrender, that are going through that it's okay. Like, it doesn't have to immediately feel amazing, or you don't have to be grateful for it initially. Like, it will come up in other ways, and it will just come up throughout your life. It's really such a careful when I say this, but if you get through it, it's such a blessing.
I think that's like really well said. 23, it's so young. I'd like to go back to that time in your life. You, as you say, you were traveling to LA, recently married. Your husband, of course, Nate Myles, was at that time still playing NRL, very successful and well-known NRL player. And, of course, you had been on home and away for several years. So your whole life was ahead of you, as we always say, not only to young people, but to 23-year-olds that have already achieved so much. What was the day-to-day of your life at that point? I mean, you've touched upon it briefly in your previous answer, but do you think about that time a lot? And what are your memories of what it was like to be Tessa James before the diagnosis?
Yeah, I mean, I was busy, just busy wanting to live out my dream and enjoying our life. I mean, we have now such an amazing life, and we had an amazing life back then. It's just, I think life comes in seasons, you know, and I think it's really important to enjoy where you are at in that present moment. You know, we're all guilty of wanting things to happen and, you know, looking too far ahead and things like that. And I was definitely like that. I was very tunnel vision on what I wanted. And I think that at 23, like, you should be.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah. But, you know, my husband, he was the captain of the football team and on the Gold Coast, and, you know, we had an amazing life. You know, I did struggle, I think, living on the Gold Coast. It was very different from what I was used to. I'm born in Melbourne, and I was used to a very fast-paced life, and, you know, the Gold Coast was not like it is now, you know, 12, 15 years ago. So, you know, there was definitely that, and I really had to work hard to achieve what I wanted to achieve. I mean, you know, I was driving to Brisbane and flying to LA. I would spend a couple of months there and then come back and stay there with, you know, my husband and do things like that, because it was it was just on the cusp of that time when self-tapes were happening, or, you know, things like that. It wasn't so easy to do stuff like that. So I really had to dig deep and fight for, I guess, what I really wanted to do. And, you know, we managed to do that. And I think having such a supportive family and a supportive husband is a huge part of that. But it was definitely not, you know, in my plan that something like that would happen. But, you know, it's just life, really. It's just life.
And when something like that happens, that diagnosis, when you're so young, you're recently married, and no one in your orbit, I imagine, would have expected that either. The words, "why me?" You've spoken about that before.
Yeah.
Do you remember how you felt, or how would you best describe now coming to terms with the diagnosis, and how your memories are of the impact and of the people in your immediate circle, your loved ones?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because my dad he had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma 2 years prior. So I think in terms of things happening to us and all of that, you kind of go, okay, cool, we're good there. Something's happened. Like, we can move on now. So, you know, when that happened with me, I think it was really like, oh, okay, what's going on? It was just a huge shock. And basically everybody just latched on, and it was like, okay, here we go. How are we going to get through it? And we just kind of held on for dear life. Basically, it was, you know, it was a real juggle. Like I said, my husband was the captain of the team, and so he would have to take days off to come and sit with me. He made sure that he was allowed to do that. And, you know, because it wasn't just a regular job, you know, he's traveling all the time. I had to get people to come and look after me because I wasn't functioning really. So that was a good chunk of my life. And it was, I think in the beginning it's like, oh, this is all good, I'm fine. And, you know, you get this flooding of people being like, I'm so sorry. But then 3 months in, you know, you're still in that life, and you're still in that reality. That is your new reality. And everybody else, which they should do, has moved on with their life. And I think the best thing that was said to me is that I'm just in the slow lane at the moment. Everyone's in this fast lane, and you're just in the slow lane. And I still use that analogy today. And I really liked it because I was like, this is okay. This is just my time to just sit in the slow lane, and I'll get back in the fast lane, but this is just my time to sit in the slow lane. And, you know, I do still remind myself of it now. And also that time will pass. You know, it will pass. I think that I was very like, oh, what am I doing? You know, what's happening? I don't, you know, I'm so sick. Like, it was a really difficult time to wrap my head around, being so young as well. But the time passed, you know, and I think that that's really important to know as well.
And that's obviously one of the many reasons that it has shaped who you are and changed your life, and why you are grateful for it as we sit here in 2025. Because when anyone is in the middle of something like that, it's always hard to get your head around that this will pass. But at 23, it's very difficult, because most 23-year-olds, a week can be an eternity. So to have that perspective is well, obviously I wouldn't say impossible, but would have made that, again, just one more challenge that you were navigating.
Well,
at that
I can't even imagine now, to be honest, because, you know, I wasn't at that point where I was looking at my phone and I was enthralled in other people's lives, and I that wasn't around when I wasn't well, and I'm grateful for that, because I really feel like that would just add this other element of like missing out. I think it maybe had just come about, Instagram. So that would be really, really difficult. But on the other side of that, you know, being so young, it's such a positive. Like, you know, I was so strong, I was youthful, I had all of that on my side, and I had a whole life ahead of me. And I think that, like, I have 4 children, and, you know, I didn't freeze my eggs, I didn't do anything like that. So I'm extremely lucky to be in the position that I'm in.
With your profile and also with Nate's profile, it was a huge story.
Yeah.
I mean, it still continues to make headlines. But again, when you're in the middle of it, was that a positive thing at all, knowing that there was an outpouring of support, or were there times where you thought, I really wish that I didn't have the career I had and that I could just be dealing with this in private without people that I don't know wanting health updates?
You know what? I didn't get a lot of that. Like, I just got support, and I had people like Delta Goodrum reach out to me, and she would talk to me like I was in such a good position, and also everything is meant to be. And we were on the Gold Coast. We were in this place where, you know, my husband's a Queenslander. Like the bond there is like so strong, and everybody was so respectful and everybody was so nurturing. And the hospital that I was at, that I would go and have my treatment, like it was the best place that I could have been at that time in my life for something like that to happen, because I was able to retreat and there wasn't a microscope on me at all, like there would have been in Sydney, or, you know, even Melbourne, where we would get, you know, photographs all the time. And I had the water and I had the heat and I had, you know, all of those really good things.
As you say, maybe lucky that it was that moment in time
Yes.
and not now.
No.
So I'd like to start moving a bit then to the journey. And as you say, you're a mother of 4 children, and you and Nate got married in 2011. So you've been together for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
Obviously, I wouldn't ask you, Tessa, about his observations or ask you to speak to him. But I would love to ask you about what having his support and him being alongside you throughout this past decade has meant.
Yeah, it's funny. I said to him the other day, I said, I wish we could get married again. Like, well, I wish we could get married now, because I feel like I really know you. Like, I didn't know you then and you didn't know me. It was just pure love. Like it was, and we really know each other now so well, and we're such a team. And I think that's really, really important, to be a team. And like I said before, with these seasons of life, you know, we're in the trenches in the season that we're in now. We have 4 kids, 7, 4, 3, and almost 1. Like, it's, you know, he's my ride or die. It's, you know, like he has all of the kids at the moment, and I'm so grateful that he is the way that he is, because that allows me to be me, and he really understands that. And I think it's really important to have someone that understands you and what you need and what makes you tick. And, you know, I give the same to him. We have a very kind of fluid life. He goes away a lot. I travel a lot. So to have that amount of children, I think you really have to have each other's back. And everybody's different. Every couple's different. You know, things that work for other people don't work for you. And so I think it's really important to understand just what works for you, and the energy that you have with each other is so important. And also with the family unit that we have, the energy that we let in is really important, because that can also affect a lot. So, you know, our family is very sacred to us. So I think we really just want to protect that.
And I love how you say that you in some ways wish you could marry him now because you know him so well. I mean, next year will be your 15th wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
Maybe you could do like a renewal of the vows or something
maybe
like
a party.
that.
I think everyone wants us to, so we'll see. I don't know. I might want a holiday by myself.
Well, you could have the big renewal of the vows, and then it could be a honeymoon part 2 with just you.
Just
that
me.
seems like a nice take, 15 years on. So as you say, you're quite a big household with 4 children, and obviously that balancing act and the fact that you've got that team. Obviously very young parents as well. I mean, we don't see a lot
He's
of that
not
these
that young,
days.
but I am.
But I mean, for children, it is a rarity.
Yes.
How for you then? How, as you say, on the home front, you're really juggling it. I love that analogy about the fast lane and the slow lane. I
Yes.
really love to talk to you a bit about that. A lot of our discussion to date so far in the course of our conversation here has been through the prism of your diagnosis at 23. But I'd also just love to ask you, as an ambitious young woman, as a woman who's got a lot of different interests and talents and skills, but also as a mother of 4, how that has impacted the slow lane versus the fast lane.
Yeah, look, I'm definitely in the fast lane at the moment for sure. I think, that analogy for me means something slightly different now. And I think taking that forward into my life is kind of knowing when it's a good time for me to just like step back and just take time out and be. And that might be for 5 minutes. Like it might not be, for a couple of months or anything like that. But I definitely think that has switched a little bit in terms of, you can't be everything all at once. And I don't think there is such thing as balance. And, we hear things all the time about it. But, some days I'm really in my mum phase. And that is a slow lane in the sense that we are just doing the day-to-day things. Like we're just going to the park, or we're just running errands, or we're doing school drop-off, or it's okay to have a nap during the day, or it's okay to clean the house, or just be mum. And, sometimes for me that means that I'm just in the slow lane. And then sometimes I'm really work heavy and, I don't see my kids, and that's, that side to me. So I think it's really okay to kind of know which phase of life that you're in and sit comfortably in that, instead of being in that slow lane and wishing you're in the fast lane, and being in the fast lane and wishing you're in the slow lane. I think just kind of knowing where you're at and being okay with that is really important, because like I said, the energy that you put out and the energy that you let in, it can really affect you. And I think when you have kids and, you are ambitious and you do want to do things, I think to sustain that and to feel good within yourself, you really need to know where you're at and be okay with where you're at.
And I imagine that's a perspective that for you really got sharpened during the time where you, as you said earlier, were forced into the slow lane. To have that perspective at 23, much less at 33, is something that eludes a lot of us much later in life than that. So I imagine that capacity to know time to slow down is possibly something that you might not have had in your toolkit.
No, I don't think so. And I think that it's something that is a lesson that's come through with my kids, because, I'm a really fast-paced person. I'm really driven. I want to do things 100 million miles an hour. After I was I'd finished my chemo, I was straight back to LA. I just wanted to go. And my children have been the greatest gift. And what I went through has really helped me with them and being their mom, and me being able to enjoy being their mom, and also being able to share things with others, other parents, other mums, other women, because I think also too, for some of us, being a parent is the biggest thing that will happen to you. And it's a lot. Becoming a mom is a lot. And what happened to me was, something that a lot of women, a lot of people go through all day, every day. But it was extremely traumatic. So I think it maybe just took the edge off being a mum a little bit. And I had these tools that I was able to use to go forward in that. And it has given me such a gift to be able to share with other people to help them through their journey. And I've only really just probably come into that in the last couple of years. And it's been so lovely. It's like all these little dots are just kind of making sense. And yeah, it's been nice.
And obviously those dots have led in part to you being part of Witchery's White Shirt campaign in 2025. Now, as a lot of our audience will know, we're big supporters of White Shirt here. It raises awareness and funds for ovarian cancer research. Every white shirt, which you are wearing today, beautiful shirt, sold from the 8th of April to the 8th of May. Witchery donates 100% of proceeds to the Ovarian Cancer Research Foundation. Tessa, as of course the statistics about ovarian cancer are not nearly as promising as we would hope in 2025. I'd like to ask you what specifically drew you to the campaign in terms of its objectives about awareness about ovarian cancer research.
I think it's really important, like we were talking about before, with the way the media is now, and I guess all these outlets that we have, is to use that ability to create that awareness and to open up conversation, and then also following through with that conversation, like with the Witchery White Shirt, how 100% of the proceeds go to funding. I think that that's really important. So I guess I felt like I wanted to be a part of it, to be able to share my story, I guess, to open up conversations with other women and to just raise awareness in, multiple platforms and multiple areas. I think that's a big luxury that I have of having a platform like that, is to shed light on things such as this.
I always think with this campaign as well, in terms of progress about that awareness and the way that women hopefully would feel increasingly comfortable to discuss these things and to arm themselves with information, and also I think to speak up.
Yeah.
I'd love to get your insights on that. About, we do know in the medical profession sometimes you will get told, no, it's all fine.
Yes.
And to trust that instinct. For someone like you that is a survivor, what's your advice and what are your insights about that aspect of women's health?
Yeah, I mean, like, we're busy. Everyone's really, really busy, and it's really hard to find time to go to the doctor or, to check yourself. And sometimes it's just hard to have a shower. So
True.
It can really build up, and it's kind of like, I'm feeling that way because I'm tired, or, things like that. I think it's really important for us women to talk about things and to talk about how we're feeling. And it doesn't have to be all the time, or it doesn't have to be to multiple, people, but I think it's really just important to share how we're feeling. And I think it's also really important to carve out that time for yourself. And that might only be a little bit every day, but I think it's really important to carve out that time for yourself so that you are understanding of how your body's feeling, and you give yourself that opportunity to check in with yourself and how you're feeling. And if you don't feel right, then really making the time to go to the doctor. And if you have to take all the kids, take all the kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Well, it's such an important message, because it's so easy to put yourself last on the list of priorities, and it's so are ultimately unhelpful. And so I think it's really good advice. And I also think that complacency is, we allow ourselves to think it'll be okay. It'll be okay. If it was something really serious, I'd know, or when I do my annual checkup, we'll talk about it then. So I think that's why having someone like you involved, Tessa, in the campaign is so powerful, because your complacency, I imagine, would be a bit of a foreign concept to you in terms of health. Is that right?
Yeah, look, I mean, I have a really good understanding of my body. I'm really, really in tune with myself, and I've done a lot of work to be that way. So if I'm feeling off, I know whether it's right or, whether it's maybe not so right. I really have a good understanding of that, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And I do little things every day to look after myself in the best way that I can. and I know this sounds probably really silly, but I almost think of myself as an athlete would, because I think to look after this village of people, I've got to be at my best. I've got to be feeling my best, because if I'm not my best self, then I cannot care for others. And I spoke the other day at an International Women's Day run, and, I said, like, I'm by no means like full cup all the time, but I always have a little bit in my cup, because that's for me. And I think that if you have that, then you have an understanding of where your body's at. You have an appreciation of how you feel. You can say to others, I need time for myself, or, you're looking after yourself. And I think that's really important. And it's something that women, we put ourselves last, because there's so many other things that, go in front, but really are those things super, super important. I think that that's the other thing. Like, does the washing need to be full? Just like silly things like that. Like, if you're not feeling right or you need time out, it's simple things like, do you need a week off working out, or do you need to start working out to feel better? Like, really understanding where you're at and not comparing yourself to others of where they're at, I think is also really important.
In terms of your children, Tess, you've spoken about how this journey has really shaped your perspective and your approach to being a mum in a really beautiful way, and a really pragmatic way too, because getting that perspective is something that I think sometimes can come later when they're grandchildren.
Yes, yeah.
So to have it while you're in the trenches, to use your phrase, I think is genuinely like amazing. But in terms of how much do they know about your health, because they are still very young, and obviously that was something that they wouldn't have had any conscious lived experience of when you were going through that. How do you as a family, you and Nate, navigate that? How open are you about that? How open do you intend to be as they get a bit older? And I mean, I know kids ask questions from day one, but they start to ask different questions.
I'm getting all my son who's 7, I'm getting all of like the little questions now, and things just, we went to a funeral the other week, and questions about that, and kids are just so pure, they're so honest, and so these questions, having to navigate these answers, and nothing has really come up in a strong way. There have been little things like, what is cancer? Why did you have no hair? And we are just honest with them. I think that that's the best way to be, is to be honest, to give them the best tools to go forward, in life, and to have the best understanding of life, because life's not perfect and things happen. So I think just being truthful with them is important.
I'd love to finish off by asking you about your career to date. You recently actually launched a Substack called The Art of Living by Tessa James. The Art of Living, I love that. What can people expect if they subscribe to that?
I had a lot of people, like I said to you, asking me things, just asking me advice, or me wanting to share things with them. And I thought I was really interested in this new platform, and I wanted to be able to share my life in a way that was no pressure, just as I would like. And so I've really found it helpful to kind of just give those little tips or things that work for me and kind of put them out there and write. And I don't have any pressure around it. I don't have any kind of thing with it. I really wanted to be able to share my knowledge and my experience and my support for not just women, everybody going through things in their life. And it just got to a point where I thought, I think I actually need to share this, I feel compelled to share things. So that's kind of where that came from.
And that'll be a really amazing almost time capsule as well, because you're documenting things. Obviously, a lot of people talk about journaling,
Yes.
but that's a shared form of journaling
It is,
in some ways.
Yeah. And I love journaling. I love it so much. I've always loved writing. So I love reading it. So I hope I can shed some light on some things. We'll see.
Because a few years ago, you actually launched an interior design studio and working with your mum and your sister. So you're creating spaces for high-end residential and commercial projects. When you were a young actor coming through working on Home and Away, is that something that was the interest sparked back then, working on sets? Or do you come into something like this studio, the Stella Podcast Studio, and think, oh, I could make this up? Or was that, what was it that sparked that interest?
I guess to the naked eye it would seem unusual, but I've always been a really creative person. And ultimately an opportunity came up with Neighbours and Home and Away, and that is where I kind of started to go into more. But I was always really creative and into fashion and into performing arts and, you know, creativity and things like that. So I think when I had my kids, I wanted to take a break. I wanted to have a step back, and I still had all those creative juices flowing and things that I wanted to achieve and things that I wanted to do. And I also wanted to have something that I had for myself that I could control. You know, I am very business minded. I love that side of things. So I really wanted to kind of delve into that. And it was just really divine timing, actually, that my mum, my sister, and I started this business together, and it has just been such a blessing and so wonderful and has given me so much. And I've really enjoyed being able to have that as a creative outlet and travel and just see the world in a different light.
So it could one day be the makings of a bit of an empire that sort of coincides with the art of living. I'm thinking like maybe a Goop-style empire, maybe a Meghan Markle-style lifestyle show.
Oh, well, you never know. Watch this space.
You never know. So where with these creative outlets, doesn't sound like it leaves a lot of time for acting. Is acting still something that you've got aspirations for? Where does acting fit on your, we've established very, very substantial to-do list?
Look, it's something that I'll love forever. It's ingrained in me. It's a huge part of my life, and it has given me and continues to give me so much just through the people that I have met and the things that I've been able to experience. I don't know. Never say never. I'm sure if and when it's ready, it might come back into my life, but I don't have any pressure around it at all like I used to. I'm very content and very happy with the phase of life that I'm in now. And I think that that's something that has been really important to me to find, is that happiness and that contentment. You can still be driven and you can still want to achieve things and be content and happy. And I think that that's where I'm at the minute. And I just kind of see it, you know, I think when I was doing it, it was kind of like all or nothing. And now I really just see it as another creative outlet. But I do feel at the moment really compelled to, I guess, share my story and share my journey and help, you know, in some way from the things that I have learned, not just through, you know, having cancer, but through having children and living life, really.
Through the life that you have lived up until 33, and a lot has happened.
Yes.
You've said a few times that you don't feel the pressure, and I think the word content, and so many people would aspire to that.
Yes.
Which is why I think you sharing your story is so powerful. If I can just end then with maybe a full circle question, because we started there by talking about you reflecting on being cancer-free 10 years after undergoing chemotherapy, being diagnosed at 23. And as we've already touched upon, that drive and that ambition stayed with you, and then you've been shaped in other ways. But were there aspects of that you look back on and think, I just let that go with me? I'm talking about things that would be, I didn't know you when you were 23 and, a famous actor, but a demand about output and hours and the next big role, and then what you look like in this red carpet and how many magazine covers and all of that. There's a vanity and a pressure and an ambition and a hunger that is so real at that point. Was that something that you released at that time?
Oh, I mean, I think it's like a really loaded question, in the sense that I think I really felt a race against the clock, I think, because being a woman, it's just the reality of being that, I wanted to have children. I wanted to have a family. And I think I really put the pressure on myself to achieve something at a certain point. It just had to be done. And then life comes in and it's like, no, you're going to have, Hodgkin's lymphoma, and that's not it for you. And no, you're going to have a baby. You're not, and I think that these are lessons that life is throwing at you to get you to realize, certain things. And I think that there is a lot of pressure on women to do things at a certain point, because, we do want to, have kids, and it's a lot, and it's an interesting one, because I think it's really important to be driven, and I think it's really important to know what you want. And if what you want is to be a mum and to do that, then that's fine, but if what you want is to be really successful at your career, that's also fine too. And I think to just sit in where you are at that moment is really, really important. And if you can get to that point, I definitely didn't do that. I do that now, and I see the benefit of that. And I think I was told that when I was not well. I was told those things, and you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, is something that I say all the time, because you can tell somebody these things so much, but until they're actually ready to do them, it doesn't work. So I think if I can say anything, it is to really just sit in where you are and just be, and let those things kind of come in, and you will know when it is right to make a move on something, or you will know when it's right to let go of something, or but I think just being present in where you are at that time is really, really important, and that has given me that contentment, that's given me that happiness. And children are such a blessing with things like that, because they allow you to live life again. They allow you to be in that present moment. And I'm very, very grateful for that.
Well, I'm very grateful that you came and sat with me today, and I hope that your first podcast interview has not scared you off the medium, because it's been a real delight, and thank you for sharing so many really genuine pieces of wisdom. It sounds like a lifestyle empire just waiting to be built.
Thanks,
Tessa James. But in the meantime, Tessa is a Witchery White Shirt campaign ambassador for 2025. Every Witchery White Shirt, as we said, sold from the 8th of April, will donate 100% of proceeds to the Ovarian Cancer Research Foundation. We'll have a link in the show notes where we can get information. Tessa, thank you so much for joining me today on the Stellar
Thank
Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been so nice. Thank you.